Hello again. This is part 2, and unfortunately I sort of forgot where we were because it takes so long to upload and publish, so I have to stop. Let's see. Okay. We were in the second body paragraph, and we were at the part where it says, I think this is accurate, a leader must learn to escape a bad reputation. Trump has failed in this aspect, or I would have said in this respect. Trump's reputation has shown the total opposite. He has the worst reputation out of all of our presidents, to the point where he may even be impeached due to his deceitful ways. And of course, we know that didn't happen. But the date shows you why that was relevant at the time it was written. The president has spit on the values most of us hold dear. The president has stood on the side of the ugliest forms of hatred and bigotry. All right, so that one, that supports, it didn't take as much argumentation for me to find that relevant, and that might tell you a little bit where I stand. But if it were necessary, if I wanted to see more support, I would ask for examples of how that particular thing, the things that the writer claims, I would want to see, a couple of sentences just saying he did this, he did that, he repealed the laws guaranteeing the definitions of domestic violence and protecting women, and he repealed the ban against anti-personnel landmines. Something like that would be useful, but of course that didn't happen in 2018, so the writer couldn't use it. But examples are always perfect in helping you support what you're saying. Third body paragraph. And by the way, these two essays that I'm showing you are both got A's. Neither one was perfect. I don't think there is a perfect essay on earth, but you can get pretty close to it, and you can definitely get an A by having a good topic sentence that supports your thesis statement. The thesis statement supports the prompt by explaining what the quote or the thing that you're saying, explaining what you mean, and then giving examples or illustrations. Last body paragraph, is keeping one's word important for a prince? Machiavelli states, men are so simple-minded and so controlled by their present necessities that one who deceives will always find another who will allow himself to be deceived. Therefore, a Machiavellian leader should learn to be a great hypocrite and a great liar. It is well known that most candidates will make promises everyone wants to hear, so that they can have their win, but hardly ever go through with these promises. The truth of the matter is, most people will forget about the promises that are made at time of campaigning for presidency. Trump promised to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it, yet he requests Congress to pay $18 billion for border barriers. He has muddled the good management of making a promise people want to hear and then sweeping it under the rug. So I think that writer did use an example that was very relevant at the time, and it's hard to refute that case if you wanted to refute it. Conclusion. For some people, the prince is a guideline on how to rule an army, but to many of us, it is questionable whether it's a fair way to treat people. Beautiful insight, beautiful aha moment. That's why Machiavelli is not liked, because the things that he says will support a leader in his grasp on power are not nice things. We don't typically approve of hypocrisy, and yet it is something that successful rulers have used, hypocrisy. Double speaking, not doing what they promised to do. The Prince was written in the 1500s and has since been one of the most important books about government ever written. Although I don't agree with all his rules, I do believe the awareness of and public outcry over state violence and its horrific human costs are much greater today than they were in Machiavelli's day. Well, that depends. That's that one person's point of view, and I didn't think it was as well supported as it might be, because that's a really broad claim. I wish I could say that humanity has grown more peaceful, but I don't believe it is true, and neither do I. Perhaps rulers have become better at justifying war since Machiavelli's day. he would not have been surprised. So I think that's written with a lot of irony and authority, lots of credibility, and it got an A for that reason. Okay, works cited. This is how you do it. There's only one works, obviously, just the Machiavelli reading. For the other prompt, what does Lao-tzu imply about the obligation of the state to the individual it governs and about the obligation of the individual to the state? Is one much more important than the other? Using the text in this selection, establish what you feel is the optimum balance in the relationship between the two. Okay. So I like you to put the prompt at the top of your essay, the first draft and the second draft. I don't even mind if it's on the final draft, because it will cause you to reread it and think about whether your thesis statement addresses the crux of that prompt and whether you have or have not addressed the rest of the prompt in your body paragraphs. The cause and effect of equality. Relationships that are always one-sided tend to have a more tricky road to go down, whether that's in the workplace of a lazy coworker or at home with a family member who never does his or her list of chores. Teams aren't as happy when only one party is showing effort. Similar to those everyday interactions that feel unbalanced, Lao-tzu recognizes that the state and the individual need to work hand in hand with each other to create and maintain a system that runs smoothly, a situation where both parties are content. Qualities to establish a strong bond between a citizen and leader, each equally important, include trust and trustworthiness, security, and humility. And the only way this thesis statement could have been made stronger would have been if the writer had said the qualities that Lao-tzu emphasizes to establish. But we do get that it's implicit. So I didn't take off points in that particular case. I felt that it was implicit because he was talking about, or she was talking about, Lao-tzu. I don't remember who wrote this. Lao-tzu discusses first body paragraph, so now we need to support those three. And by the way, this is a very good way of helping yourself know what you're going to write about. Because you can see here's the first segment, trust and trustworthiness. Okay, so the first argument should be all about that. The next body paragraph could be about security, and the last body paragraph about humility. Boom! We already know what we're going to write about. So it is kind of like a rudder. Lao-tzu discusses the importance of creating a form of trust between the people and the state. Okay, that was really good because the writer came straight out and said, yes, a form of trust is necessary. Verse 17 reads, if you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. The master doesn't talk, he acts. When his work is done, the people say, amazing, we did it all by ourselves. A mutual agreement of trust will turn out in everyone's favor overall. But in order to gain trust from people, a leader must have faith in them. In the Tao Te Ching, verse 61 tells us that humility means trusting the Tao, thus never needing to be defensive. If a nation is centered in the Tao, if it nourishes its own people and doesn't meddle in the affairs of others, it will be a light to all nations in the world. And notice, if you will, that the three dots here are called an ellipsis, and that you can use those, you are allowed to use those to leave out words. This verse amplifies the importance of putting confidence into the Tao, which is the way, and that doing so will create a great leadership that benefits everyone. Okay? The explanation was right there. The only thing left that the author or the writer could have done would have been to have used an example. However, I can't really say that I can think of examples of states run on Taoist principles. I know that some organizations are and families are, but I can't really think of a country that is. Security is another key component to Lao-tzu's suggestions on governing. Okay, and that's the second part here, security. The master knows when it is his place to govern, and with this comes a sense of security from the people, but also whoever is leading feels a sense of security. So it's a question of knowing when to govern. As Lao-tzu writes, the master does his job and then stops. He understands that the universe is forever out of control. Because he is content with himself, he doesn't need others' approval. Because he accepts himself, the whole world accepts him. An example of that would have been really nice. This particular writer did not have 3 body paragraphs. He or she had 4 body paragraphs, which is perfectly legitimate. As long as you don't have less than 5 paragraphs, you're fine. You can have more. It is conceivable that these 2 paragraphs might have been connected. Let's go forward. It is less fearful to have a leader who is loved and accepted by the world than one who is despised by other countries. An example could have been used there. These positive feelings create security. True. Lao-tzu also mentioned the use of weaponry in war and when it is acceptable to stand behind it. Okay, so I think that I would have liked to have seen more of a transition from because he accepts himself, the whole world accept him. Maybe like a little sentence like acceptance of oneself and being good in your own skin makes you less of a scary person. Like if you accept others and others accept you, that means they don't feel threatened by you, which means that they might have a chance to not only accept you, but love you. That would be a transition that gets us to this next idea. But in general, I was very happy with the ideas that I saw expressed here and the logic of what the writer was saying. For individuals to know their leader understands the need for weapons in battle only when such are completely necessary will establish peace of mind throughout the nation. In verse 31, Lao-tzu writes, "Weapons are the tools of fear. A decent man will avoid them except in the direst necessity, and if compelled will use them only with the utmost restraint." And then it was page 209 in that edition of A World of Ideas. Therefore, he knows weapons are needed, but they should not be pulled out until all other efforts have failed. That is because governing the people means understanding their humanity. Okay, so that was very nice. A master who understands humanity, beautiful transition there, beautiful, will be humble because he or she is likewise human. Lao-tzu acknowledges that it is essential to include humility with governing and also to encourage the individual to accept it too. A great example is the first part of verse 66 where he states, "All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. If you want to govern the people, you must place yourself below them. If you want to lead the people, you must learn how to follow them." The obligation of the state is to act with humility when dealing with individuals so that trust can be created. If people see their state act of no greater power than them, they will follow their master because they don't feel competition but compassion towards them, a feeling of equality. Yes, compassion does breed equality. Lao-tzu makes an effort to, this is the conclusion, to establish a corresponding relationship between the state and the individual by explaining what will happen if such were to take place or happen, such and such, or various events were to take place. He demonstrates why it is important for the qualities of trust, security, and humility to be present in a government. To no extent is the state more important than the individual or vice versa because they learn to balance each other out. Lao-tzu showcases the obligation for the state and the individual to both practice these traits in order to reach the greatest state of equality. I'm rushing a little bit only because I want to tell you that, and this is how you write the works cited citation for all of the citations given above, if it were this edition. I am available to you if you would like to see me at the Writing and Reading Center on a day that's not Saturday. That's when I'm there on Saturdays, except for the 3rd Saturday of the month. I am very willing to meet you there to help you, or I could have a Confer Zoom meeting with you from there or even from my house. So let me know how I can help you. I know that a lot of times students get really nervous about writing the first essay, and that's why I thought I would make this short video to show you what I thought was good and to encourage you. Just put your first draft is going to be a brainstorm. So get it together. You're going to think it looks awful. We all think our first writing looks awful, and then we revise it. You can't revise unless you've got something to look at and make comments about. Thank you very much. I wish you success in this. Get your first drafts up, please, and make an appointment with me if you want. I'm here for you.